And I said, okay, God, it's been a good life. And then some other voice came over me, and she was definitely a woman. And she said, oh no, you were put on this earth for purpose, and women need you. And so I said, if I live, I will pursue that purpose. And all this is happening while the gun is in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And I just made myself a promise. If I live, I will pursue that purpose. And exactly at that moment, the man took my purse and he ran. And so I lived, and I just decided, I don't know exactly how I'm going to be my own version of Oprah, how I'm going to empower women and create a movement around women's purpose, but I will take one step at a time. And I decided the first step was to get an education in in something that would help me understand how to support people. I found the field of positive psychology, which is a fairly new part of psychology. It's the scientific study of human flourishing and happiness. And it was everything I had ever wanted to learn: the study of optimism, the study of purpose, the study of positivity, the study of bouncing back even stronger through every challenge.
Hi, welcome to the Empowered Woman Podcast. This is a place for you to learn from inspiring women how to empower yourself through self-love. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, triplet mom, woman empowerment coach, and all things motivation extraordinaire.
On this episode, I talk to women's happiness and purpose expert, speaker, and coach, Carin ROCKInd. I had the pleasure of being on her podcast, Purpose Girl, a few weeks ago, and our messages couldn't be more aligned. She shares some key moments in her life that made her shift everything and find and follow her purpose, which is helping women find their purpose. So good. Let's dive in. Hi, Carin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Marta. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. So I was on Carin's podcast, and I'm so excited to be able to turn things around and know more about her story this time around. I love everything that she stands for, the name of her business, which is Purpose Girl. It's got everything to do with what I talk about, finding purpose, right? Finding your talents, your gifts, your passions, and especially when it comes to being a woman. So I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about how all of this purpose stuff started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I founded Purpose Girl about 8 years ago, but really I think it's been with me since I was a little girl. The long story, a little bit short, is I like to start when I was a little girl. I'm the youngest of three in a very loud family, and I was the happy one. I was the perfect one. And my parents would even tell that to my siblings, right? Karen's our perfect one. And so I just grew up with the idea that to be happy meant find a husband, good looking. He should be a doctor or a lawyer to please my Jewish parents, right? Have the house, have the dog, have the whole thing. And then I would be happy. And I went to college looking for my husband and walked out with him and got married at the ripe age of 22.
Wow.
And we had everything I just described by the time I was 24. He was indeed a lawyer, tall, dark hair, green eyes. We made Thanksgiving dinners. We had a huge house. Blah, blah, blah. And I was so unhappy. I would cry almost every single day. And my husband would say, what is wrong with you? And I would say, I'm not happy. He's like, we are happy. We have season football tickets. We have beer in the fridge. Like, we are happy. And something inside of me, Marta, I know that you identify with this, felt so empty, right? It was like just something was missing, even though I had all the things. And so we got divorced at 26. And that's when I began my journey to say, well, if that perfect life didn't make me happy, what would? And what kept coming to me was purpose. I kept feeling like I'm here for something, like I'm alive to do something big, important, meaningful, right? Just make a difference. But I couldn't figure out what it was. I'm like, what is purpose and how do you do that? And I ended up starting to volunteer with high school girls just for fun, in the same youth group I had been in when I was a teenager. And these girls lifted me up with their excitement about the future, but they also, many of them had eating disorders. One of them would cut herself. Many of them felt like they weren't as smart as their older sibling or weren't pretty enough or good enough. Why don't the boys like me? Whatever it might be. And so what I found was this real love for helping each one of them see how truly unique and beautiful she is, what her dreams were, not what her parents' dreams for her were, or what Cosmo magazine said her dream should be, but who she was. And at the same time, I started chatting online with other young divorced women because I didn't have any friends going through divorce at 26, 27, 28.
Right.
And they made me the leader of the board because I was the one who was always saying, we're going to get through this. This is going to be amazing for us. Like, we can do this. What are we learning? And my whole life became women's empowerment. And I was like, this is it. I felt happier than I had ever felt. This is what I was born for. But I couldn't figure out how to turn it into a career, right? There were no podcasts at the time. This is almost 20 years ago.
Right.
No podcasts, no YouTube. People would say, you want to be Oprah? I'm like, I do. Don't we? I mean, you probably do too, right?
Yes.
We all want to be Oprah, right? You get a car and you get a car, and like making a difference with our voice. Long story short is that I couldn't figure it out. I became extremely depressed, like every month begging my psychiatrist for more and more and more medication. And she said to me one day, you don't need more medication, Carin. You have all these dreams in your heart and you have never fulfilled one.
Wow.
Good for her, because she's a psychiatrist, which often just give meds, right?
Yeah.
So one by one, I started fulfilling dreams, like going abroad. I went abroad for a month. I told my boss I needed a mental health break, and he said, take it. I ran a marathon. I mean, those kinds of things. But I still hadn't pursued this dream. And then it was late one night, and I was walking home from a bad blind date, and I put my key in my condominium door. And I suddenly felt hot breath on my neck. And I turned around and I was nose to nose with a very sad looking young man. And he's looking at me. And I thought, are you going into the building? And he looks into my eyes. And then he looked down at my stomach and he pulled a gun.
Oh my gosh.
So I fall to the floor. I'm screaming. Now the gun's pointed at my head. And I think this is it. This is the end of my life. And I had a moment of realizing I was going to die without ever pursuing my purpose.
Wow.
And I said, okay, God, it's been a good life. And then some other voice came over me, and she was definitely a woman. And she said, oh no, you were put on this earth for purpose and women need you. And so I said, if I live, I will pursue that purpose. And all this is happening while the gun is in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And I just made myself a promise. If I live, I will pursue that purpose. And exactly at that moment, the man took my purse and he ran. And so I lived, and I just decided, I don't know exactly how I'm going to be my own version of Oprah, how I'm going to empower women and create a movement around women's purpose, but I will take one step at a time. And I decided the first step was to get an education in something that would help me understand how to support people. I found the field of positive psychology, which is a fairly new part of psychology. It's the scientific study of human flourishing and happiness. And it was everything I had ever wanted to learn: the study of optimism, the study of purpose, the study of positivity, the study of bouncing back even stronger through every challenge. I found that they had a master's program at the University of Pennsylvania. I applied, I got in, and I left my 6-figure vice president job and became a poor graduate student in this program at 36.
Wow.
While my dad was telling me it was the worst decision of my life, and turned out to be the best decision of my life.
Yes.
So, and then from there, I started building a coaching practice, telling people I can coach, and picked up my first women, coaching client for women, and then started telling all my previous corporate clients, I can come speak on this.
Yeah.
To the point where now, 8 years later, I was just the keynote speaker at Amazon's International Women's Day conference, and I get to speak at companies like Capital One and in Progressive Insurance, and you name it. And I get to have a podcast like you and, the Purpose Girl podcast, and speak to women all over the world. This week, I published my first book. It's like, when you have purpose, when you have that dream, it's meant to happen.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy. I don't want anyone to think it's easy, but it is meant to happen, and it will happen.
Oh my gosh.
Believe it.
I love that so much. So many different parts and facets to the story that are just amazing. You kept coming with new things. I was like, oh my gosh.
And then I was robbed at gunpoint, what?
No, but I love that so much. Well, starting from when you were first married and you felt that emptiness. And that is one of the things that I talk a lot about, because we usually think that people and things are going to fill that emptiness.
That's right.
And what I have come to realize with my journey and with seeing I mean, over and over again, celebrities, athletes, all these people that seem to have it all and are still miserable and unhappy, because we see this all the time in the news, right? Is that once we realize that there is no emptiness, because we are the ones that are supposed to find that purpose and fill ourselves up, that the emptiness is really a product of our imagination, because we keep seeking outside of us, everything starts making sense. But like you said, it's a journey. It takes time. And it's because it's us really finding ourselves, our identity. And I love that you said that you worked with young women, because I honestly feel like there is a need for more guidance and more help for women that are young, to be told exactly that you have a purpose, you have something, to do, to contribute to the world. And it's not just checking the boxes, right? I will get my degree, I will get married, and you do all of that. And then it's like, okay, what's next? Tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly. And you and I both are in touch with a lot of women, whether it's in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and did all the things, right? Checked all the boxes, and still then felt that emptiness. It's so interesting. Women are twice as likely to be depressed as men. There are a number of reasons for that. But when I think about the word depression, I think about, here we were as little girls, right? When you were like 2 and 3, you may not even remember it. And you were living out loud, whatever that meant for you. For one of my coaching clients, it meant being in the corner, and she learned to read and write really early when she was like 3, 4, whatever early is. And she would make up stories in her head. And then her mom labeled her as shy.
Wow.
And so she felt like who she naturally was wrong. Or another one of my clients who was so gregarious, and she would get all dressed up and colorful and do cartwheels and dancing for her family. And her dad wanted a boy, and he was first generation American, and said, no, you need to study. And that is all that's important. Wow. No more cartwheels, no more gymnastics, no more dancing. And so often, we all have this natural who we are, and it gets depressed, right? Pressed down. And that's why we have the emptiness. And then, as you said, we look externally to fill it. And what's interesting is the science so positive psychology is a science. It's all based on research. And it began because in 1998, the president of the American Psychological Association was a very famous professor at Penn. And the economy was amazing in 1998. In the Western world. It was the dot-com boom. Amazon was starting, Yahoo, all that. And people could make a lot of money. But just as the economy was on the rise, so was depression. And he said to the American Psychological Association, we're obviously doing something wrong. Right? We have focused, and then he said, we focus so much on illness, like anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. We're not focusing on wellness. And we need to put as much research rigor into wellness as we do into illness. And since then, hundreds of millions of dollars have been poured into research. This is now the most popular class at Harvard and Yale and places, because no one is teaching us how to be happy. What we learn as a kid is, if I get all A's, if I get into the right school, or I get the right job, then I will be happy. And what the research actually shows is that if you fulfill, right? That's the opposite of depression. Fulfill yourself with what lights you up, what turns you on, what makes you feel passionate, what excites you, what gives you peace, all of that, then you will have greater success. So happier people are more successful in every aspect of their life. It's working on our own happiness first. And I believe purpose is a huge piece of it, because we've been led so astray.
Yes. And I love those two stories that you told about your clients being labeled as young kids and then taking that upon themselves for the rest of their lives. And this is one of the things that I have been learning too, going back into my past and investigating, my beliefs and where some of my trauma or whatever has come from. And now being a mom, understanding that parents do that stuff because they don't really know any better. And most times they don't even have bad intentions. It's actually the opposite, right? That dad that said, you need to stop jumping around and go get a degree. He really believed that was the best, and he had the best in mind. And But then once you become an adult or once you're out of that phase, it's really up to you with having the right support, hopefully. And that's what we're talking about, how young people really need that guidance into understanding that you're the one who's going to find what that means to you. Like your parents give you that basis and they show you kind of the way. But after that, it's really more of like a support. And then you really finding what makes you happy, because ultimately you're supposed to be the one that knows. Nobody can tell you.
Exactly. But none of us have really the tools. None of us have been taught, right? We learned in school how to do math.
Yeah.
How to do science, maybe a language, but no one ever taught us how to be happy. No one ever taught us to understand what our own superpowers or character strengths are.
Yes.
No one taught us how to really dig deep and be clear about our passions. And often we were told, and I agree with you, these parents were doing the best they could.
Yeah.
The mom didn't want her daughter to end up isolated in life, wanted her to be social and have friends. And so of course she was, the one who wanted to be in the corner and read. And so what can happen sometimes is who we naturally are, we were told was too much or not enough.
Right.
And then we squash it. Or like I had a dream of being a writer for a long time. When I went to college, I started taking creative writing classes, and my dad, bless him, said, writers don't make any money. So I squashed it. Now, what I know now is some writers do. Tell that to J.K. Rowling, with Harry Potter. She makes money, right? So and does it fill your heart? And it doesn't have to be the source of your money. Your money can come from another place. It helps you feel fulfilled. So it's a process. When women come to me, like the one who was jumping around, she was a pharmacist. She actually was my pharmacist. And think about what a pharmacist does. I love pharmacists. I need them, but they count pills and they're wearing this white coat. And so not a lot of color, not a lot of movement, dancing. Yeah. And she pulled me into the back one day. She said, "You're a life coach, right?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I really need help. I'm so unhappy and I don't know why." And so as we dug deep, not blaming her dad, honoring him.
Yeah.
But digging underneath of who are you really and what is your heart tugging at you to do? And then her starting to take dance classes. Again, it wasn't what gave her money, but giving dance classes. And then she said, "You know what I really want to be? I really want to be a model." And I was like, "Yeah, girl, you go for it. You're gorgeous." And she ended up becoming a model, and she made so much money as a model. It was like, you really can make money just wearing beautiful clothes. I don't want to say just, but you know what I mean? So there's this, I think sometimes we aren't clear on our passions because we have depressed them.
Yes,
down.
100%.
And then we need the permission and the tools and the support to bring them out and let them fly free.
Yes. And I love that you said the permission, because I feel like as coaches, that's what we do, right? We facilitate. We're not doing the work. We're just telling them, it's okay. You got this. You can do it. Now start walking, start going, right?
And I'm standing behind you and to the side, and
I'm right here.
If you fall, I got you. And, and you're going to fall. I mean, you and I both know that following your purpose is not necessarily easy.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why a lot of people don't do it. The fears.
It's not a straight shot.
It's not a straight shot. It's up and it's down and it's right. And the fears, at least for me, I had 8 years between the time of knowing when I was working with the young girls and the divorced women, just as a passion on the side, until I went to graduate school was 8 years.
Wow.
And those 8 years I was stuck and became depressed. But really the stuckness came from, I was so afraid of failing. My old perfect, have to be perfect self was so afraid of failing. I was so afraid of rejection. I mean, I would have rather died than be rejected. And now I know I can't do this work unless I can handle rejection.
Yes.
It happens all the right.
Yeah.
And so what I had to learn was to really love, honor those fears, that they were my younger self, a part of me that just created those fears in order to keep me safe. And I've now learned to love that little girl inside of me and to hold her as we bravely go into the world. Because I really believe, Marta, especially right now, I mean, it's such an interesting time. Every single one of us was put on here for purpose.
Yes.
We are alive for purpose. And, the way I know that, and it's a unique purpose, is that no two people are the same. right? You have your incredible journey with your children and how you ended up feeling and how now you inspire. I mean, I have listened to your podcast and how you now inspire and share of your experience, right? And all the tools that you used. That is unique. I can't do that because I haven't had your story. And so I really believe that our entire lives have been training for this moment to live our purpose.
Yes.
And during this time of coronavirus, your fear is going to be up and like, oh, I'm just afraid of losing my job, or I'm afraid of this, or I'm sick of my kids, or whatever it might be. The thing though is that I really believe this is the moment that women are here to rise.
Yes.
And that what can come out of this, because we need women's leadership, we need women's passion, women's compassion, women's ideas. And I envision this army of goddesses on purpose, like rising up for this and being the ones who really change lives after this. And I think that's really our opportunity right now. And then it refocuses your brain from fear into joy, into fulfillment. It refocuses you from pain into purpose. And it shifts you entirely. Like one of my clients is now starting her podcast. Yeah, she has 3 kids at home and doesn't know what to do with all the homeschooling. But she's like, instead of focusing on that and the dread, she's like, you know what? I had this idea for so long. I'm just doing it. Like, yeah, girl, you're doing it. Let's get you the equipment, you know?
That's amazing. And tell us, what are some of the strategies? So for someone listening to us and totally resonating and saying, yes, I want to find my purpose. I want to take this time to dig deep and move past the labels that the people have imposed upon me, that I've imposed upon me, and not think that it's too late. Because if you're a pharmacist and you want to start a career as a dancer or as a model or whatever, you can do it. It doesn't matter how old you are. You just have to go for it. Because sometimes that's a concern, right? Well, I'm already in my 30s. I guess it's over. No, it's not. You can still do it. So what are some strategies, exercises, anything that you can share with us that you use with your clients that you feel are super helpful to get somebody started on this journey into finding that light at the end of the tunnel? Or as I've seen in some memes around, lighting the light yourself in the tunnel.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, one is to begin with really your vision and ask yourself in 4 years, when you're looking back at this time, what do you want to brag that you did? Right. When you're like in a place where you're like, let's just say, and you don't even like bragging, but you want to celebrate with me and Marta, and we're all having a cocktail or a latte or something, or a cup of tea. Like, what do you want to celebrate of how you spent this time and what you did? And then let me like take it up a notch. At your 80th birthday party, you're giving a toast. What do you want to say about your life then? And how you lived and what you did and the way that you impacted. And so I always love starting there. We want to start further ahead because your 80-year-old self is very wise. Oh, yeah. And she wants you to get to your 80th birthday party and feel like you rocked out life. Right? She knows that there's nothing to be afraid of. So imagine you're giving that speech and what you've done, and you're sharing how you impacted and all the people you've impacted, or the ways that it's all there. So that's like one tool, is like start there. And then other tools to get into it. One of my programs is called Goddess on Purpose. It's an 8-week course that we're actually just in week 3 now, and women are like lighting it up. It's beyond. Last week was all about your inspiration. Who inspires you, and when you look at all the people that inspire you, there will be common themes. And that usually tells you what your inner self is really craving. Right? So one of the women in my Goddess on Purpose course, she realized every single person who inspired her was someone who had not only overcome challenge, but was using their challenges to make a difference. And they also were very real, like Glennon Doyle, who's like so real and honest about her mess and all of that. And it was like, oh, okay, that's really who I was born to be and part of the message that I'm here to share. And then looking at, who do you already inspire, and what would other people say about you? Other things are being clear, getting to know what your superpower, I call them your superpowers, which could be your strengths. There are a couple of positive psychology tools. You can take a free online assessment to learn your strengths. It's called the Values in Action, VIA, Survey of Character Strengths.
I love that.
And you can find it at AuthenticHappiness.com. It's totally free from the University of Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Other tools are to get clear on what your life experiences have shown you in terms of wisdom. So take one of my purpose coaching clients. When she did the inspiration exercise, she realized every single one on her list had their law degree and was out there doing big social justice change, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg kind of change. And she looked at me, tears in her eyes, and she said, if I'm going to be honest, there was a part of me when I was in college that wanted to go to law school. But she was raised her whole life to be a beauty queen, and she was, and to marry an NFL player, which she did, and to work in her dad's company, which she did, and really was kind of told, there, honey, you don't need to do something so big.
Wow.
And coming out of our work together and a number of these exercises, you want to be looking for the themes.
Okay.
The themes, right? Just one exercise might not tell you, but you start putting the themes together and things will emerge. And what's really emerging are probably ideas, dreams you've had for a long time, but have squashed down, or the ideas you had and you said, no, I can't do that. I'm too old, or whatever it might be, or it's impossible with kids. And here she was, and she actually had a child, a 2-year-old. I think that when we were working, now he's 3, when we were working together, and she started applying to law school, even with her 2-year-old, even with everything else. And she did get into law school, but at the same time, she was volunteering with Planned Parenthood, which is something near and dear to her. No matter what your politics are, this was important to her.
Yeah.
And with 0 experience, she applied for and got the state director job at Planned Parenthood in her state. Big social justice, right? Again, no matter what your politics are, apply that to you. It's like, so you take all these different exercises and you start to see the themes, and then there's a lot of mindset work. So I think, as a purpose coach, one, it's me giving the tools and then reflecting back what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. And then there is the accountability and permission and the mindset work to really work with the fears that come up, work with the what will people say. She grew up in her whole family's conservative. They don't want her working for Planned Parenthood. And so working with that and working with her own inner voice and how she can be strong in that. And so, and this is the truth, or the model. She was so afraid to tell her dad she was going to be a model. Turns out he was really proud of her.
Wow.
So some of the mindset tools are, first of all, one of the tools I love, women in my communities, I ask them to celebrate themselves every day. Self-celebration. Call it brag, call it celebrating. And you and I can do that together right now, to write down your fears and flip them and really ask yourself what else is true, right? With my dad telling me writers don't make money. I pushed myself to come up with 10 female writers who make a lot of money. 10 female self-help writers who are writing the kind of books I want to write.
Yeah.
It happens. It exists.
Oh yeah.
Right. So we also want to really flip those, and then your fear's never going away. I used to try to just be fearless, never going away. Instead, I love it, as Liz Gilbert says in Big Magic, her book, Big Magic, she realized fear is never going away. She's just going to put it in the back seat instead of in the driver's seat. Right. And she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which became a movie that Julia Roberts was in. Yeah. You would think once Julia Roberts has played you in a movie, you're no longer afraid. But
oh yeah, it never ends, right? As long as we're alive.
That's right. And the fear is just saying, hey, this is real. This is something I really want. This is something important.
Yeah.
And you could look at it, and the research shows that fear and anxiety, fear in your body looks very similar to excitement. It's really, which way do you want to see it?
Yeah.
And you could see fear. This is research by Kelly McGonigal. You could see stress and fear as the opportunity to rise with courage.
Oh my goodness. So much amazing information there. And I love that you talked about different resources, because it's not just one thing. And this is what I always say, because as human beings, we tend to look for that formula, right? Okay, so tell me now what I can do to find my purpose today so that I can start doing stuff tomorrow. And in a couple of weeks, I will be full on in my purpose. And it just does not happen like that.
Right.
Because it's a journey, not only because it'll take you time to figure it out, but once you figure it out, you're going to have to allow yourself to pursue it and fight against those fears, right? So it's a process. And some days you're going to maybe take a couple steps backwards because you're afraid or because something happens that throws you off. And then another day you're going to take 7 steps forward. So it's just, you just got to trust the process, keep moving forward. I love all of that so much. So tell us, how can we work with you? How can we find you? What is some more information?
Yeah, so you can find me at purposegirl.com, and that's where you can get access or find the Purpose Girl podcast.
Nice.
Join, my newsletter. I've got a free gift on there of a Living on Purpose guide. It starts to ask you some of these deeper questions.
Nice.
It's totally free on my website. And coming out this summer, because I'll be going on maternity leave, having my first baby.
Yay!
The Goddess on Purpose course, I'm going to be offering in digital, like in total self-study. So all of that you can find on purposegirl.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Carin. This was great. I love your story, your insight. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. So are you.
What an inspiring story. I hope you felt encouraged and empowered to find your purpose and follow your passion. Don't forget to connect with Carin. All the links are in the show notes. And if you're looking for more interviews like these with women from varied backgrounds and stories, join our Facebook group, the Empowered Women Community, where I've been interviewing 20 women all throughout the month of June. It's been amazing. Until next time, bye.